It's a very sad story if I tell you how I was beforehand.
Maybe.
Very active. I don't know, I always prided myself on, well, for a start, not looking my age, but you put that down to vanity. But I did do rather well for somebody of my age. And then my husband died rather quickly from terminal cancer, obviously terminal, and it was quite a distressing time. But that made it all the more difficult to make my doctor understand that in actual fact what I was feeling was wrong with me wasn't actually in my mind, as she was trying to insist it was, because she was around. I mean, I was sleeping at Marie Curie when my husband was in there, so, as I say, very stressful. But she underestimated the strength of my character. So when I went in there to complain about something being at the back of my throat and impeding my swallowing, she just wrote it off as stress for a full year. When I eventually did get to see the marvellous Mr. Sood at the Oaks Clinic, and he said I had to have a pan endoscopy, which was done by a chap called Mr. Bem, who assured me beforehand, oh, it'd be something and nothing. Anyway, when I woke up after the endoscopy and saw his face, I said, I bet you don't play poker, do you? So he said, why? I said, well, obviously, you have found something. And yes, it was a cancer, which then followed 6 weeks, I think, of radiotherapy, which had a very good outcome. In Mr. Sood's words, it had melted away. But then 6 months on, I started having breathing problems until eventually I woke up one morning gasping for breath. I had to ring my brother, who got me to the PRI within about 8 minutes, I think. I did my diva bit and staggered into A&E and immediately got sent to the front of the queue, which was very fortunate because then they informed me that I'd go there with 5 minutes to spare. Otherwise, that would be the end of the story before it had even begun. Fortunately, they worked like mad in A&E, and I eventually went up to Ward 18, which became my home for the next 2 or 3 months, because then it resulted in one thing after another. I first of all had an emergency tracheostomy, which was then followed a month or 2 later. Although the inimitable Maggie made me have a feeding tube, much to my disgust. But in the end, it turned out to be another lifesaver, really, which ended in what you see now, a laryngectomy, which has really been the worst of the lot, because, my word, it has taken some stoicism and some adjustment. But, as my brother keeps reminding me, it is better than the alternative, and I really have nothing but praise for all of the professionals that have worked tirelessly to get me to the stage I'm at the moment. Well, the hardest thing was training the new young doctors on the wards, because a couple of those that attended to me didn't know how to manage it themselves. So fortunately, there were some extremely good nurses who, after again gasping for breath, and the doctor telling me, no, it's perfectly all right, and this nurse coming up and clearing it out otherwise. So then I just said to the nurse, will you please show me how to do this myself? Because I don't particularly want to wait until he's trained. So, not that it was the lad's fault, he was only following what he thought. The only problem about this laryngectomy lark is, as soon as people hear the voice, then you become a non-person. Everybody then assumes that not only have you lost your voice, you've lost your brain and your hearing, which ironically I partially have now. But when you are used to being treated as an intelligent, sentient human being, and then all of a sudden people are talking to you as though you're 6 years old, which, being a little bit of a diva, as I've previously mentioned, makes me quite exasperated. And I sometimes forget that I was brought up to be a lady, as Maggie will be able to attest. But joking apart, that was a joke, by the way. For people who have less self-confidence than I have, I would imagine that that sort of treatment can make you retreat into your shell and not try. The thing about this thing is, it's a constant trial and error most of the time, but you learn by your mistakes. Now, this that I'm speaking through this morning, it's the very first time that this has been completely successful. Normally, round about 10 minutes, although having said that, my brother informs me I talk too much anyway. But when you are used to mainly being an observer to other people's conversations, when you find that you can actually join in, then you do tend to overdo it slightly. Well, for example, a few months ago, my favourite cousin actually made an honest woman of his girlfriend of 25 years. And I missed the wedding. That was me with less confidence than I have now. But at 11:30, when they actually got married, I was stood in the toilets in the Cafe Nero cleaning this out, which was right when they'd been stood there taking their vows. And this is my advice to everybody that this happens to, is not despair, to take the advice of the professionals and make your own mind up in the end what will suit you and how precious life actually is. So don't throw it away if you can circumvent it. I rest my case. Well, my name is Jim. I'm 77 years old. I'm ex-army. A lot of my life was spent as an entertainer.
Wow.
Musician. what's relevant, really. I got diagnosed at February of this year. Operation on the 6th of April. Since then, I think the word is roller coaster. Because time stood still, very fast. There was so much going on. I didn't have time to think about it. I just sat back and let them do to me what was there to say. This is where we finished up. The decision was surgery or radiotherapy. So I had both. The operation itself, although it's a big one, well, you don't think about it. You go to sleep, do it on the operating table, wake up in the ICU. The tubes coming out of you like an octopus. There's very little pain involved. I found there's plenty of pain relief available. The worst part, to be honest with you, in the recovery, was the not knowing, the uncertainty. It all worked out for the best, but it would help to pull people's minds at rest. But they were given a little bit more up-to-date information as ongoing to start with, right? Very helpful, very caring. Really, you saved my life. What more can I say? Anyone that's going to face this, all they've got to do is listen to what they're told and just go along with it. Because, you guys know best. It's unpleasant having feed tubes and drain tubes. But that's all it is. It's unpleasant. And believe me, it's better than the alternative.
That's true.
As a result, I went fishing yesterday to York.
Is that the first time you've been?
Yeah, I got soaked to the skin.
Oh no.
I loved every minute of it. You can live a normal life. You just got to push yourself a bit. Well, it's true.
Brilliant.
No one's going to do it for you. No. This is my method. And it's what I tell it. Initially, the cancer is scary. I'm cured. Totally cured. Thanks to a brilliant surgical team. But obviously, looking back on it, it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
My name is Dilshad Khan, and I was born in Pakistan. I came to England in 1960, and since then I've been here all my life, apart from a little stint where I worked abroad. And prior to my retirement on health grounds, I worked at the NHS hospital. A person who's actually gone through it can never forget the first time when you get the news. And my news came about because I was in the process of going on a pilgrimage to Mecca in 2005. And I had a bit of a cough and it wasn't going away for about a few weeks. So I thought before I go to the pilgrimage, I'll go and see if I can actually have a look at this. Working in a hospital, I was able to actually talk to a fellow colleague who worked in ENT. He had a look and he said, maybe we need to make a referral, so a formal referral process had to be started. And before I went, he said, okay, I'm going to take a biopsy. He took a biopsy and I said to him, look, is it okay if I can go to Hajj? He said, yeah, we'll discuss it when you come back. And I didn't tell anybody. I was alone because I didn't tell my family. I went on my pilgrimage, came back, the biopsy results came through, and unfortunately it was cancer. I still didn't tell my family because you know the anxiety that one has. And it took me about 3 days before I could tell my wife and daughters that this had happened and this was the case. It took me a week before I could tell my parents because their perception of cancer is cancer equates to death. And so it took me a week to build up the courage to talk to my parents, and alhamdulillah, they were very understanding. Their emotion wasn't what I was expecting. They were quite calm. They took it as part of life, and this is what happens in life. So that sort of was quite nice to have that support. So that's how it happened. When we first discussed it, I was referred to a consultant by the name of Sanjay Sood, and Sanjay and I discussed this in more detail. By this time my wife was with me as well. She was accompanying me into these discussions. And we thought the best thing would be that we would try radiotherapy. So I had radiotherapy for a month, and we thought that hopefully it cleared it. Unfortunately, a year later it came back again. So then we started the discussion process again. And this time, myself, Sanjay Sood, and another consultant colleague, Chris Penn, we actually decided the best thing would be to go for a full laryngectomy. We talked about partial laryngectomy and various other options, but we said no, let's just go for it fully and let's see what happens. The operation took place in 2008, and I was in hospital for, I think it was 21 or 22 days, about 3 weeks or so I was in hospital. Actually, I'm quite fortunate in the sense that I tend to do a lot of things for myself, even on the ward. I used to change the tubing for my feeding myself. So I try and become self-reliant. And certainly when the first time to actually putting the valves and things, I got a lot of support from speech therapy. A lot of support, and I must say that for the first few weeks, the support was invaluable. But again, alhamdulillah, after a couple of weeks, a couple of trying, I do it myself now. So since then, I just change my own valves and everything. And I'm quite comfortable in doing that. Well, I think one of the biggest issue for me was the fact that all my life I've used my voice as my tool for work and for every other aspect social. Unfortunately, that's diminished quite a lot now. I don't even try not to attend wedding parties or parties where there's a lot of noise in the background, because what I found is people want to talk to you and you can't communicate effectively, and it frustrates me. So I've actually become socially withdrawn from those functions. However, what I have actually done is taken up other social activities which are extremely helpful and frustrating. Golf, in particular. It's a godsend in one sense, but it's a pain in the other. The most frustrating game that any individual can play, but the most enjoyable at the time. So basically you learn to adapt, and yeah, I'm fortunate. I have a reasonable level of voice. The only interesting thing is, when I'm on the telephone, people assume I'm a woman. My voice must project over as a female. So they're always saying Mrs. Khan and Mrs. this and that, and now I just don't bother correcting them, I just let them carry on. I think one of the other areas that has affected my life is my diet has changed completely. In the sense that I find difficulty in swallowing certain food or textures of food. I find difficulty in swallowing meat, unless it's mincemeat. I find difficulty in swallowing chips, and I love chips, but I find difficulty in swallowing chips. Pizzas, with the thick base pizzas, that's a no-go area. So our diet actually has become more Mediterranean, where we do a lot of more fish and pastas and various things that are more softer. I think it's worth pointing out that I think you only value the services when you're on the receiving end. And certainly one of the things that I found ENT and speech therapists and now that is the value that comes from having that as a support system. Now I'm fortunate that I can do a lot of things, but I know there's my safety valve is there. They're my safety net. In case anything goes wrong, there's always somebody at the end that I can actually contact. So I think that's worth pointing out. I think we don't appreciate our professionals enough.
The word cancer is a very emotive one, especially when you're talking about yourself. My cancer came on really quickly.